Let's talk disability and sex. The following video touches on sensitive topics and may not be suitable for all audiences. The views expressed in this video may not be reflective of those held by Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. Those interviewed have provided their consent to be filmed for educational purposes and have approved all content in this video. Meet Mikayla, a disabled young adult.
My name is Mikayla, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm going to give a quick visual description of myself. I'm a white woman with curly blue hair and I have purple glasses. I identify as queer or gay. Which words I use kind of depend on the day and who I'm speaking to. I have cerebral palsy, so that's where I'm coming from in terms of my physical disability and experience. And I recently graduated with an undergrad in anthropology from York University, and I'm currently seeking work and considering what I'm going to do next in terms of graduate school.
What does sexuality mean to you?
To me, sexuality is very multifaceted. I think because of the intersections between disability and my queerness, for me, sexuality means identity within the LGBTQIA+ community, but also kind of managing that along with sort of this constant battle of demonstrating sexuality as in sort of my own feelings of sexual attraction, of experiencing the desire for sex. So basically, my identity as a queer woman, it coexists with the issue of people's assumptions sometimes that disabled folks might be asexual. And while obviously disabled folks who are asexual absolutely exist, part of what sexuality means to me is that I do have a sexual desire and that I sort of have to mediate both of those definitions as a disabled queer woman.
What is your experience?
That I had that I think really encapsulates both sort of navigating queerness and disability is around the time that I was 14, I had a discussion with a healthcare provider. It was a regular checkup, and she inquired, she was like, "You're around the age that you might be considering having sex, so let's talk about that and your need to go on birth control." I was like, "Well, I'm having sex, but I don't need to go on birth control." And she said, I think you need to go on birth control. Like, I don't know if you know about how likely it is that a person gets pregnant, but just because you only do it once or twice, you could still get pregnant. And she had a whole speech ready for me. And I said, well, actually, I don't need birth control because I'm not having sex with people who could get me pregnant. And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, right now the person is a woman." And she said, "Oh, okay. Do you need resources around that?" I said, "I don't think so." She was like, "Okay. Okay, I mean, that's okay, then yeah, you're right, you don't need birth control." And I said, "I know, yeah, I heard." And so she was very shocked and definitely wasn't expecting that. But I think conversely, I've had healthcare professionals react as though just the idea that I'm having sex in general is quite surprising. So I've had people, on the other hand, assume that I wouldn't need birth control, or that I wouldn't need to be having those kinds of discussions around sex, STIs, any of those kinds of risks. And I think that that's really a potentially negative assumption that healthcare providers make, because it puts teens, young adults, whatever age group you might be working with, at risk, because if they don't have the resources to have knowledge about what they're doing and how to protect themselves, even if people make assumptions about whether disabled folks are having sex, that doesn't actually have any bearing on whether or not they are. So the thing to remember is to be open to having these discussions and be aware of where bias and assumptions based on societal norms around sex and disability might influence how a healthcare provider might approach those kinds of conversations.
What are your best hopes for future conversations?
In terms of what I hope for the future, I think societally, looking at this as a larger picture issue, I would love to see it become more common for sexuality to be taught from a young age, not just from a heteronormative and sort of abled perspective, because I think sex education as it exists now in curriculum in schools really focuses on a heteronormative approach, and so you're leaving out disabled folks and you're leaving out LGBTQ plus folks. And so when you exist in both those communities, there's really so little that you're being taught from a young age, and it leads to all kinds of assumptions that you might make, or you just don't have the resources. And so I think if those perspectives and those lived experiences are incorporated into a curriculum, and also discussions within the healthcare sector, and even within the family from a younger age and just more frequently, that would just give people a greater series of things to draw from as they age, and also just reduce the stigma around those kinds of discussions. Because I think right now there's such a lack of that kind of information that a lot of the time teens, young adults sort of have to come to finding that kind of information and the resources themselves as they get older, and it can be challenging and a bit of an isolating experience. For myself, I think I want the future to include more disability activism and more advocating for youth. I know that wherever I go from here in terms of my background in undergrad, but as I move forward with whatever graduate school opportunities I pursue, I want that activism and that sort of broader awareness to be a part of whatever work I do.
The creation of these videos was made possible by the Social Science and Humanities Research Council of Canada, the Promoting a Future of Inclusive Healthy Lifestyles for Everyone lab at the Bloorview Research Institute, and the Kimmel Family Opportunities Fund through the Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital Foundation. This video was created by Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital, led by the Profile Lab, part of the Bloorview Research Institute, and Evidence to Care, part of the Teaching and Learning Institute. The lived experience shared in this video is by Mikayla Horngard, a youth leader at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. This video has been narrated by Wesley McGee Saxton, a youth leader at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. The Profile Lab conducts research around health and wellness topics that healthcare professionals, parents, and young people with disabilities often find hard to talk about. For more information, email Dr. Amy McPherson at amcpherson@hollandbloorview.ca.